Hi, this is John Hinn with the Pulsing Cinema, and the movie of the day is 1977's Operation Thunderbolt, an Israeli film, a retelling of a real incident, the raid on Entebbe, which was a raid on the Entebbe airport in Uganda in order to save a hijacked plane. The passengers on a hijacked plane. There was this Air France plane that was hijacked, and they flew it into Entebbe Airport in Uganda, which at that point was Uganda had come under the leadership of Idi Amin, who was all best buddies with Muammar Gaddafi, and basically all of our enemies and all of Israel's enemies. And so this raid was led by this Jonathan Netanyahu, which is the older brother of Benjamin Netanyahu. And Jonathan was actually the only Israeli commando who was killed during the raid. The name of the raid was actually renamed Operation Jonathan in honor of him. And so this was a heavy incident for Israelis. This was a very deep film, any kind of hijacking, which is sadly, there have been probably many more than there should be in that area of the world. It was a very serious political incident, and yet the raid was, very much a nationalistic thing, and the Israeli filmmakers Menachem and Golan and Yoram Globus later to found Canon Films and create the worldwide weirdness that was Canon Films of Bronson and Electric Boogaloo and all of that crap. Before that, they were Israeli filmmakers who came from nothing and with an abiding love of film and country, made some really incredible films, and films which really got you by the throat. And their Operation Thunderbolt, this is a very nationalistic film. I watched the Israeli version of the film. I think there were a number of different cuts and versions of this film for different countries. But there is a version on YouTube which is more the expanded, has Israeli credits, and it's a really nationalistic film about a hijacking, and in some ways it feels like a rehearsal for the Delta Force, or it feels like the more realistic version of the Delta Force. Because Operation Thunderbolt is a real-life thing, and Delta Force was kind of a fictionalized, retelling of that Reagan hostage crisis, the plane hijacking there, and I like the Delta Force, but in some ways, it just keeps going on and on. It feels like 4 or 5 movies that are like squished together, because it feels like there's the hijacking, but then the hijackers move the hostages to another area, and then Chuck Norris and Lee Marvin have to get their crew together, and they're training the crew. It feels like it goes on for like fucking 6 months. This whole training and everything, whereas in a way, Operation Thunderbolt is kind of the blueprint for that, but it feels a lot more realistic, and it feels like you have that that pulse of documentary reality in this film that is kind of sorely missing from the Delta Force. Delta Force is kind of the jingoistic fantasy of the Operation Thunderbolt's reality. And yeah, it is a nationalistic film, but thank God it is. It's a great film. It's a great film, and it just shows a group of people just getting together and taking out the bad guy, just taking him out. Not in some weird, crazy, like in the Delta Force with Chuck Norris like firing a fucking rocket off of his moped and blowing somebody up. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. The 80s, that kind of flew. That kind of ridiculous excess was just part of Canon Films and part of Chuck Norris and part of American Life, I guess. I don't know. I was very young. I wasn't quite aware. But yeah, Operation Thunderbolt, some great performances. And the hijackers, played by Klaus Kinski and Sybil Danning, play the German part of I think there were two hijackers who were Middle Eastern, and then two of them were from German sleeper cells in real life. And Klaus Kinski and Sybil Danning play those. And there's so many tense close-ups of them in the plane as they're and you just see the difficulty of these people have just controlling the hostages. Klaus Kinski has that kind of manic stuff, but he also has kind of vulnerability and and yet he also is able to project the fanaticism of someone who would do something as crazy as this, something that is just totally out of most people's bounds, doing this horrible act of hijacking this plane. But he's able to pull it off. It's one of his best performances, and it really makes you sad that he didn't kind of he didn't get into more of this realistic films, because he's usually these kind of Wagnerian operatic heroes of the Herzog films. So seeing him play like a real life character. I guess he did a lot of spaghetti westerns, which I think were really good. He was more of a down-to-earth character. But seeing him play this character and the vulnerabilities and the anger and the fanaticism and the guy who's basically sweating it out in this little tiny airplane jet cabin, while he's trying to keep this thing together and keep Gaddafi happy and keep Idi Amin happy. It just feels realistic and great. Robert Forster played, a fanatical hijacker in the Delta Force, and he was really quite good. But pound for pound, Kinski and Sybil Danning are way ahead of him, really. So great, one of the great Klaus Kinski performances in this film, where he keeps it more low key and realistic throughout the film, and so we really love it. The guy who played Netanyahu, Jonathan, is, I think, really good as well. The Israelis are portrayed as just these guys who are just, for love of country, will put themselves on the line for these hijackers. And it's a lot more heartfelt and realistic than the overblown, macho jingoistic bullshit of Lee Marvin and Chuck Norris in the Delta Force, who are almost characters that are like larger than life. These guys are just down and dirty. They're real slow. They're soldiers. They're commandos. They go home. They do their job, but. They have lives outside of this, but when it's on the line, they're on the line, and it's like the film begins with Jonathan, doing, drilling his soldiers, and it's like he keeps going over and over. He's like, no, not good enough, not good enough. We can do it in 15 seconds. We can do it in 10 seconds. We know we can do it. We do it even better. And he just drills people to the point of where they just become a machine, and they can just accomplish these feats. And a lot of those drill scenes are kind of like the drill scenes in the Delta Force, where it's like the film just kind of like stops and like Chuck Norris and Lee Marvin are like, yeah, we're going to go out and train. We're going to go out to whatever this other country. And they just kind of like stop the movie, and it's like they're training there for 2 weeks. It's like, hey, motherfucker, you should have already been training. The hijackers are there. Shelley Winters is about to get fucking, wasted. Nobody wants to waste Shelley. Nobody wants Shelley Winters wasted. You got Martin Balsam, right? Man, that was a great movie as well. But Operation Thunderbolt, a very actually important piece of world history, where we see these hijackers and what they did, and we get to see a bit of a triumph. Yeah, nationalistic as hell. I love it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's a cool movie, definitely.